Hello everyone, I'm Rakesh from Analytics Plus, and this is 7 reports that is going to change how you manage your help desk. Please use the questions panel on the right-hand side bottom corner of your screen to post your questions, and I'll answer your questions via email right after this webinar. Alright, so let's begin. And I'm sure nobody here in the audience is alien to running help desk reports. Some of us use reports on a daily basis, some of us use help desk reports on a monthly basis, and so on. And we do that to monitor different things that are going on in our help desk. When you're relying on reports to give you information about your help desk, your report should have a certain characteristics. So according to me, these are the characteristics of an effective report. The report should show you a slice of what's going on in your help desk. Because your help desk is a repository of information. There's a lot of useful information sitting in your help desk that you can use to make business critical decisions. But when you're running a report, you're looking for something specific. The report should answer those specific questions. And when you're looking at these reports, more often than not, you'll find yourself looking at a certain area or a peak in the report that catches your eye. Reports need to be live and interactive for you to be able to investigate further and fully understand what's going on. Now, let's say you're looking at a report showing you the SLA compliance trend for the past few months, and you notice a spike in SLA violations in the month of June 2018. Now, what is the next obvious thing that you would want to do? You would want to find out what happened in that particular month. So a report should give you a way of drilling down deeper and finding out answers to your questions. And finally, a report should help you with the next course of action. Now, it would be amazing if I had a bot powered by artificial intelligence that would suggest corrective actions based on the data that is represented in my report. I'm sure at some point in the near future we'll get to that stage, but for now, the report should at least point you in the right course of corrective actions. The reports that I'm going to show you today, the 7 reports, will help you do just that. All these reports that I'm going to show you have been built using Analytics Plus, the business intelligence and analytics software from ManageEngine. And as you already know, Analytics Plus offers out-of-the-box integration with Service Desk Plus and a few other ManageEngine software such as Service Desk Plus MSP, Support Center Plus, Op Manager, and Applications Manager. And in addition to that, you can connect Analytics Plus with any other third-party software that you're running, either using APIs or by connecting it to your applications database. Now, as soon as you connect the data, Analytics Plus runs a lot of automatic data analysis and gives you out-of-the-box reports. For example, with Service Desk Plus, you get about 400 different reports and dashboards as soon as you set up the integration. And in addition to that, you can also create your own reports and dashboards as well. Obviously, there are going to be some customizations that you need, some new types of reports that your management needs. You can use the drag and drop report builder to run those reports, and also you can run you can create a lot of calculated metrics using the powerful formula engine and generate reports with over 30 different visualizations. If you're interested in setting up this integration with Service Desk Plus, just head on over to the admin panel and click on Advanced Analytics under the General Settings and follow the on-screen instructions to set up the integration. It takes less than 5 minutes to set up this integration, and you'll be able to see 300 or 400 different reports and dashboards, including the ones that I'm going to show you in this webinar today. All right, so let's start with our 7 reports. Now, continual service improvement is at the crux of IT service management. CSI aims to continually improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of your services and processes. And in order to achieve continuous service improvement, you should compare your current efficiency levels with your past performance and make sure that you see an improvement. How can analytics help you with that? Now, let's say you want to find out areas where your technicians lack expertise, and you want to find a way to make sure they're continuously improving. Now, no matter how good your technicians are trained, there are going to be areas where they lack expertise or they need some extra time to provide answers or appropriate resolutions. Now, if I were a help desk technician, I would probably take a lot of additional time in resolving requests that have anything to do with Active Directory because I don't understand Active Directory that well. The best I could do is reset passwords, but if you give me anything else, I'd probably need some help from my colleagues to resolve that request. And what this is going to do is it's going to increase the time it takes for me to resolve those requests. So in theory, identifying the top categories of requests where the resolution time is really high should help a help desk manager identify the areas where technicians lack expertise. Now, let me show you a report which gives me the average resolution time this quarter across different category of requests. So looking at this report, in my case, it looks like my technicians seem to be taking a lot of time trying to resolve requests that have to do with internet link, followed by requests that have to do with faulty hardware. And then it looks like administrative issues and software requests also take considerable time to resolve. So those are the top 4 or 5 categories where my technicians seem to be taking a lot of additional time, which is an indicator that they probably need some help in those areas or lack expertise in those areas. So as a help desk manager, what you can do is set up some additional training for your technicians in these areas, analyze the way they're handling requests in those categories, and help them improve in those areas and help them reduce the time it takes to resolve requests in those areas. So you've identified the areas where your technicians lack expertise, and you know what to do to help them reduce the time it takes to resolve those requests. The most important step of continuous service improvement is continuously monitor improvements and see how you can improve on those on an ongoing basis. So in order to do that, I'm going to introduce an additional metric into this report that gives me the average resolution time from 3 months ago. So the red line, or I'm sorry, the red bar represents the average resolution time from 3 months ago, and the green bar represents the average resolution time for this particular quarter. And you can use this report to monitor improvements. If the green line, or I'm sorry, I keep saying green line, but if the green bar is lower than the red bar, it means that your resolution times have reduced compared to the past, and your technicians are showing improvements in those areas. So this report gives you a visual reference of where you are compared to where you were 3 months ago. And this can be used by help desk managers to constantly monitor how they're doing in different areas compared to the past. And you can apply the same philosophy to any other metric that you want to continuously improve on. And another thing that I would want to say is obviously not all technicians lack expertise in the same area. A certain technician might be good in a particular area, whereas he might lack expertise in a different area. So if you want to help technicians individually, you can also use this little drop down and choose technicians from this drop-down list and see how they're doing in a certain area. So for example, if you look at Ed Holmes, when it comes to general issues, he has improved from the past. I'm saying that by comparing the red bar and the green bar, whereas the average resolution time when it comes to software requests has gone up compared to the past. So that is one area that you need to concentrate on when you're trying to help this particular technician, but he probably doesn't need a lot of help when it comes to general issues. So you can use this report to choose what type of training or what area of training that you're going to give to your help desk technicians. So that's an example of how analytics can help you continuously improve help desk resolutions. Resolution time is very important when it comes to your help desk, right? Because when you look past the help desk workflows, the complex system of SLAs, those custom forms and rules that you spent so much time and love building, the fundamental function of your help desk is to resolve or close requests in the shortest time possible. For your help desk to function efficiently, there needs to be a constant stream of requests being closed in order to make room for new requests that are coming in to your help desk system. So one of the primary metrics that you need to watch out for is the ratio of incoming requests against the number of requests being closed or resolved. And I've chosen to give this ratio a fancy name. I call it the burn rate. So the burn rate is the percentage of requests your help desk closes or resolves in comparison to the incoming requests. And this is the simple calculation that goes into computing the burn rate. So this is the total number of requests resolved. Again, if you want to use take into account the total number of requests that are closed, you can do that also. But in my example, I've chosen to take the number of requests that have been resolved, divided by the total number of incoming requests that are coming into my help desk system, multiplied by 100. So a burn rate of 50% in a month shows you that your help desk has only closed about half the number of requests it received that particular month. In a perfect world, you would want your burn rate to be at 100%, which means you resolve all the requests that came into the help desk system that month. But that it's not a perfect world. But however, anything above 80% is a good sign that your help desk is on top of things. So let's look at what the burn rate report will look like. Now, this burn rate report has three components. The burn rate percentage represented by the red line here, the incoming requests count represented by the green bar, and the resolve request count represented by the blue bar. Right, so if you look at the month of September, the total number of requests that came into the help desk system is at about 94, out of which my technicians were only able to resolve 26 of those requests, which gives me a burn rate of about 27.7%. And that seems to be the trend throughout, whereas because my burn rate is about anywhere between 20% to 30%, which means on average, I'm only able to resolve, or my help desk is only able to resolve 3 out of 10 requests that are coming in to my help desk system. So this is something I need to definitely get to the bottom of this and see what is going on when it comes to resolving requests. And burn rates is a good metric, a simple metric that you can watch out for. And it's a good indicator of where your resolution rate is at. And this is a simple metric that you can track on the way to work, or on your coffee break. You can keep tabs on what the burn rate is, because burn rate gives you a good indicator of how your resolutions are doing and how your SLA is doing as well, because it gives you a ratio of the number of requests being resolved compared to the total number of requests that came in to the help desk system. Right, so we talked about resolving requests in the shortest time possible, but like all good things, even this has a dark side. Because when we look at reports such as the burn rate, which solely concentrates on request resolutions, It's easy to get carried away and completely neglect the other aspects of a help desk, such as customer satisfaction. One metric that we pride ourselves on is FCR, or first call resolutions. For those of you who are not aware of what first call resolution is, these are the requests that are resolved during the first interaction with the customer or requester. And I'm sure when a help desk manager looks at a FCR report that looks something like this, where there is a gradual increase in the number of requests being resolved in the first interaction, it probably makes them really happy. But one aspect that we all forget to take into account when we look at first call resolution rates is how happy is the customer in these scenarios. Now, I'll give you an example. I bought a new car recently, and I felt that the headlights on it wasn't powerful enough for me to see further down the road when I drive during the night especially. One of my friends told me that yellow headlamps had better penetration and I should switch the bulbs. I wasn't sure if I could change it because I didn't know if any such changes would void the warranty on the car. So I sent my car dealership an email, a very specific email asking if it was okay to switch to yellow headlamps. I got a response within a few hours which said, "Thank you for your question, blah, 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 and here's the link." It didn't have a direct answer to my question. I clicked on the link, which took me to the car manual, the whole thing. I was like, oh God, this is not what I was looking for. But I didn't give up. I dug through the pages, got to the headlamps section, and finally got to the part where it said supported headlamp configurations, and I found the answer to my question. In help desk terms, my question was answered in the first interaction or conversation. It can be marked as FCR, but was I satisfied? If you ask me, I would have been much happier if the technician had replied with a direct answer to my question. Instead, he chose to make things easier for him and shot me the link. Though it answered my question and I got a prompt response, I would give it a satisfaction rating of about 6 out of 10 because I had to spend about 20 minutes digging through for answers. So it's important to carefully track customer satisfaction along with the FCR metric. So I'm going to introduce the average satisfaction rating in this report, and you can see the FCR count along with the average satisfaction rating. And obviously, you can see that as and when my FCR count increased, the average satisfaction rating has gone down. So on the surface, it can look like FCRs are increasing and you're resolving requests really fast. But once you analyze a little deeper, you can see that the satisfaction rating is really suffering in these cases. Because sometimes when technicians get too focused on closing requests, they lose sight of customers, and they don't really keep into account the customer satisfaction in those areas. All they're worried about at that point in time is closing requests as soon as they can. And technicians can get into the habit of shooting out web links. This is something that I've seen quite a bit across different help desks and domains, because it's really easy for the technician. All he needs to do is find out the link to the help section and just shoot out the email, rather than taking the time to at least put in a few lines explaining how that link is going to answer the customer's question. And sometimes when there isn't adequate information in the responses, that also impacts the satisfaction rating. And all this, obviously causes customer dissatisfaction. So in addition to watching the FCRs, it's also important to watch the average customer satisfaction rating in these cases. Right. So we talked a lot about resolving requests and how the fundamental function of your help desk is to take a request which is open and resolve or close it. But when you look at the life cycle of a request, there is more than just open and close. A ticket goes through different stages and statuses. Now, typically, you can expect a request to go from open status to closed status, or it can go from open to on hold to closed, or any other combinations of that. And if you use more statuses, there is going to be more combinations. Some of these statuses are less desired. What I mean by that is you wouldn't want a lot of your requests to be sitting in an on hold status for too long, right? Because when a request is on hold, it means there is nothing happening with those requests. The technician might be waiting for the vendor to get back to him, or he might be waiting on other tasks to be completed. Nevertheless, when a request is on hold, it means it's just sitting there without any activity. Don't you think it's important to track the amount of time a ticket spends in an inactive status or an undesired status? Has anyone found a way to generate reports on how much time each request spends in each of these statuses on average? This is one metric that a lot of our customers have requested in the past. And finally, with Analytics Plus, we've made it possible. You will be able to track the status changes of requests and the amount of time it spends in each of these statuses using reports in Analytics Plus, and it will be released in a month's time. So I'll show you an example of what this report looks like. So this is the quarter-on-quarter comparison of the time spent in each status. So it has 3 bars: on hold status represented by the blue bar here, the green bar representing the open status, and the gray bar representing the resolved status. So if you look at this particular report, you can see that the on-hold time on average was about 5 minutes in Q4 2016. It has gone up to about 15 minutes in Q1 2018 and to 59 minutes in Q2 2018. So it looks like the amount of time the request is being put on hold is on the rise overall, which is something that you need to really understand why it's happening. It could be that you have a new vendor on board who's taking a lot of time resolving requests, or it could be just how technicians have adapted to resolving or handling requests over time. But nevertheless, that is something that you need to get to the bottom of. And to help you with that, we have a whole separate dashboard which caters to which has metrics pertaining to status changes or status history, as we call it. So it gives you the average number of status changes per request, the average amount of time that your request is spending on hold, the average amount of time in an open status, and most frequent status changes. As you can see, the most frequent status changes open to on hold, which means that my technicians just love to put requests on hold. And this dashboard also has one specific report that I really like. We all have a lot of, or I wouldn't say a lot, but at least a few requests that are just sitting in the backlog for a really, really long time. For you to, understand why it's sitting in the backlog for a really long time, you'd have to open each request and see what really happened in the past with that particular request. But using this report, the status change history for the top 10 pending requests, you can get a good insight into how much time this request has spent in each of these statuses. So it gives you a good starting point of the life cycle that particular ticket has gone through. And there are a few other really interesting reports that are available with respect to the status history dashboard. And like I said, these reports will be available out of the box in a month's time in Analytics Plus. Now, I know the next obvious question that is going to pop up in your heads is, can we get similar reports to track technician changes and the amount of time each technician spends on requests on average? Yes, absolutely. I'll first show you a report similar to the one that we just discussed. And this one shows you the average amount of time each technician spends on a request. So if you consider Q2 2018, looks like Heather is spending about 49 minutes on a request on average, and Jennifer is spending about 80 minutes on a request on average. And look at this, unassigned time. So on average, a request is sitting in an unassigned status for about 132 minutes, which is a little over 2 hours. So as soon as a request is raised, it's sitting in an unassigned bucket for about 2 hours before someone gets to it and starts working on it. These are some of the insights that you can get by tracking technician changes in your help desk. And similar to a status history dashboard, we also have a technician history dashboard, which gives you insight into technician transitions, the average unassigned time, the average time spent by each technician, and the most frequent technician change, and a few other metrics. Now, when we talk about technician changes, in addition to monitoring the amount of time each technician spends on a request, it's important to monitor the number of times a request gets reassigned to different technicians. Too many reassignments prolong the time it takes to resolve a request, because every time a request goes to a new technician, the new guy has to go through the entire history of the request before he can come up to speed. Too many reassignments could point to one of these. When requests don't get assigned to the right technician during the first assignment, it probably is going to be reassigned to the right technician at some point, which in turn increases the number of assignments or reassignments that happen on a request. And this could happen for a couple of reasons. You probably have ticket auto routing, which is routing requests to technicians based on the conditions that you've defined, and probably that is not up to date, which could prevent the right technicians from getting the right type of requests. And another reason is probably because technicians don't want to take ownership of requests. This usually happens, and that is one of the reasons why it could even be in an unassigned status for so long, like the previous report showed us. A request comes into the help desk system, the technician opens the request and notices that that particular request is going to take a lot of his time, and he rather just let it be in the system and let it be someone else's problem than him taking ownership of that particular ticket. And that is one of the reasons why the number of reassignments could also increase. And the lack of understanding or inexperienced technicians, especially when you have new technicians in your help desk, when they look at complex tickets, they would rather have it worked on by a more experienced technician than them taking ownership of that particular ticket. And all this can increase the number of reassignments that might be happening on your tickets. So let's look at an example of what that report looks like. So this is the average number of technician changes per request. If you look at December 2016, the number of technician changes on average is at about 1. It has gone up to about 2 in January 2018, and in August it has gone up to about 3 times, which means that it takes about 4 different technicians to resolve one request in August 2018, which is really, really bad, and that obviously is going to increase the amount of time it takes to resolve requests in my help desk. So we looked at a lot of examples how reports or analytics can help you track different metrics in your help desk, but that is not the only thing that analytics can help you with. Analytics can help you with a bunch of different scenarios as well. Now, consider a scenario where your IT is on a budget, but your office Wi-Fi network needs an upgrade, like really bad. How do you convince your boss to let you do the upgrade? This seems pretty straightforward, and all you need to do is generate a report showing the number of requests raised with the category as Internet, subcategory as Wi-Fi, item as connection issues, and show that to your boss. But here's the problem. I'm sure almost all of you have a long list of categories, subcategories, and item in your help desk to help you categorize requests. But how many of your requests how many of your users really follow it? They wouldn't really go through the hassle of categorizing requests properly unless you made those fields mandatory. And even if you force them to, you can't be 100% sure that they choose the right values when they raise the request. And these are some of the reasons why requests can remain uncategorized in your help desk. If categorization is not enforced, it probably results in a lot of uncategorized requests. And another thing, when users create requests via email and not the self-service portal, that's another huge reason, or that's another big reason why requests might not be categorized in your help desk. And too many options to choose from. This is a case where you probably, as a help desk manager, go a little overboard and create a lot of a long list of categories and subcategories. And when users see that, it just completely throws them off, and they just end up choosing the most easy one for them to make their lives simpler. And also outdated business rules. When you have business rules that were created 2 to 3 years ago, it probably doesn't hold good in the current scenario. And these business rules might be triggering different categories and subcategories to be set on the request when it gets raised. So these are some of the reasons why requests might not be categorized. So when your requests are not categorized, how is analytics really going to help you find out the answer to your question in terms of the number of Wi-Fi issues that your requesters or your users have raised? If you think about it, even though users don't go through the trouble of categorizing requests properly, they make sure that they describe the crux of their problem in the email subject. Now, all you need to do is just go through the 3,000 odd requests that you have and look for the word Wi-Fi, right? It sounds like a nightmare. But fortunately, analytics can help you sniff out some of those keywords and easily find out how often these come up in your help desk. Now, I've created a search string which looks for specific text values in the subject line of the request. So I'm looking for desktop, password, server, and Wi-Fi. And obviously there's the ones that don't match any of these criteria are categorized as no match. So if you look at the overall count of requests, or the overall percentage of requests, about 4.2% of your requests are pertaining to Wi-Fi issues. Now, you have the data that you're looking for, the number of requests that are raised pertaining to Wi-Fi issues. And all you need to do is just take that to your boss and convince him to let you do a Wi-Fi upgrade in your office. All right, so we've taken a look at 6 different reports so far, and this is the final report that I'm going to be talking about. How many of you use project management module in Service Desk Plus? And how do you track project progress, other than obviously opening each project and milestone or task and finding out the completion status of each one of them? Now, with analytics, I can make your lives a lot easier, because with analytics, we've come up with a way to create or give you burn down charts. A burn down chart compares the ideal work completion rate with the actual project progress. And Analytics Plus helps you track both project and milestone progress using these burn down charts. Now, let me show you what the burn down chart looks like. The burn down chart has two components, the ideal work completion trend and the actual work completion trend. Now, let's say you have a project which you have 7 days to complete. And in order to complete that project, you need to put in 7 hours of work. Now, the ideal way of working is by putting in an hour's worth of work each day, so that by the end of the 7 days, you put in 7 hours of work, which completes your project. And that ideal way of working is what this particular green line here represents. If you put in an hour's worth of work each day, this is what your actual completion trend will look like. But in the history of mankind, we don't work like that at all, because we usually wait until the deadline to put in all the work and complete the project, or any other work for that matter. And that is exactly what the actual work completion trend line is showing you. Now, one thing you'll have to remember is when the red line representing the actual work completion trend is above the green line, it means that your project is behind schedule. Whereas if the red line is below the green line, it means that your project is ahead of schedule. So at the end of the day, your goal is to make these two lines meet, which means that your project has been completed. Now, by looking at this burn down report, I can tell you a story of how this project progressed. Now, day one, 16 hours of work need to be put in for over the span of the 7 days. I have day one, I don't think any work has been put in. Day two, a little bit of work has been put in. Day three, no progress. And finally, around day four, someone has realized that there is a project that they need to work on, and they've started to put in a lot of work towards the project. And day five, they put in so much work that they've actually are ahead of schedule in just 1 day. And after that, they've put in considerable amount of work, but the project has not been completed yet. So for a project manager, a project burn down report is really important, because it gives you an idea of where you are in terms of completion. And it does so by giving you a simple graph, rather than you having to open your project, open each milestone, open each task, and finding out where you are in terms of the project completion. So those are the 7 reports that I wanted to show you. And these reports that we've seen here today bring a completely new angle to your help desk. And these are made possible because of the analytical capabilities of Analytics Plus. And these are some of the features Analytics brings to the table. The unlimited number of interactive and role-based dashboards. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, you get close to 400 different reports right out of the box when you set up the integration between Service Desk Plus and Analytics Plus. But you have the option to create your own reports and dashboards as well. And it lets you run a lot of investigative analysis using visualizations. If you find, or if you see an area which catches your eye, if you see a peak or a spike in a specific metric, you can drill down a little deeper and do a lot of investigative analysis to see what really happened in that particular time of the month or year. And it also lets you create a lot of derived KPIs. A lot of the metrics that I showed you today are not available straight away in your help desk application, but Analytics gives you a way of creating a lot of calculated fields based on the raw data that you get from your data source, in this case, Service Desk Plus. And you can also run a lot of comparative analysis. If you remember the CSI example that we started off with, it gives you a way of easily comparing your past performance with the current performance, letting you do a lot of comparative analysis and finding out where you are in terms of resolution time. And you can apply that logic to any metric that you are interested in. And it lets you run a lot of trend analysis using different metrics. You can see how that metric has performed over the past few months or the past few years as well, if you are really interested in doing that. And finally, it gives you the ability to combine your help desk data with data from other applications. Now, this is something that I didn't really cover in this webinar, but this is something that you can easily do. Let's say you have your help desk application, and let's say you have a monitoring solution like Op Manager or Applications Manager, which monitors your network. You can easily combine data from Op Manager or Applications Manager or any other network monitoring software with the data from Service Desk Plus and run a lot of combined dashboards and reports using metrics from both of these applications. So that brings me to the end of this webinar. Thank you all for joining in, and I'll answer all your questions in the next few minutes as soon as I'm done with this particular session. So that's it from me today, and I'll hopefully see you in another webinar very, very soon. Thank you so much.